Really excited to visit with Jimmy Burrow on In the Trenches with Dave Lapham, presented by First Star Logistics. Of course, Jimmy is the father of Joe Burrow. We'll talk about that. We'll talk about the excellence of Joe Burrow and the excellence of Jimmy Burrow as an athlete and a coach himself. 16 years, defensive coordinator, then assistant head coach at Ohio University. Jimmy Burrow has a lot of stories about football and about his son. I think you're going to really like it. It's time once again for In the Trenches with Dave Lapham. We're in the luxurious studios of First Star Logistics, and joining us today, Jimmy Burrow, father of Joe Burrow, Heisman Trophy winner, first pick of the draft by the Cincinnati Bengals. Proud father, I'm sure. Good morning, Jimmy. How are you?
Good morning. I'm doing great. Glad to be on your show.
Yeah, we're glad to have you for sure. We're going to talk about your athletic prowess here for a little bit before we get to talk about your son Joe. You were a darn good football player yourself. You played your high school football in the state of Virginia. Tell us about your football ability and other sports that you may have played in high school.
Well, I was actually born in Virginia and I went to high school in Mississippi.
Okay.
In Amory, and played really all sports: baseball, basketball, and football, and ran a little track. And my dad was a basketball coach early, and by the time I got to high school, he was a principal and then assistant superintendent. But I just kind of like Joe. I thought I was going to be a basketball player, loved basketball, but ended up playing football 1 year at Ole Miss, and then transferred to Nebraska, drafted by the Packers. Played 1 year for Green Bay. Dick LeBeau was my secondary coach, and then went to Canada and played five more years professionally in the CFL. So, but really, basketball was I'd say probably my first love. I played in the Mississippi High School All-Star basketball game, not the football game. So I still thought, hey, maybe I can play basketball in college, but football was the good choice, though.
So were you a shooting guard, point guard? What position did you play, Jimmy?
I could do a little of both, but I was more of a shooter. Again, my dad played basketball. He was the point guard for Mississippi State. My mom scored 82 points in a high school game. It's kind of a legendary women's basketball player back when they had, three on each side. I don't know if you guys are familiar with that, but she averaged over 50 points a game, and somewhat that kind of got me involved in basketball even way before football.
So you were an 8th round pick of the Green Bay Packers. You played the year there, and then you go to Montreal where you win a Grey Cup in 1977, and you're an all-star. You're not just a player in Canada. You're an Eastern all-star 2 years in 1978 and 1979, and you played defensive back, right?
Right. I played for Marv Levy the first year when we won the Grey Cup, and then he went to the Chiefs. And but yeah, 78 and 79, I was a inside safety. Although 78, I played I think 14 games at corner, and but we got beat in the Grey Cup in 78 and 79. I think Warren Moon was the quarterback in maybe 79. So yeah, we had a lot of success. It was a great thing for me to play up there, and we had great teammates, and again played in 3 Grey Cups, and had fun doing it.
So when did the coaching bug strike? Did you always know, since your dad was a coach, did you always have a feeling you might get into the coaching world, or when did you make a determination about that?
Well, I think just I started thinking about it at Nebraska when Monty Kiffin was our defensive coordinator, and looked up to him, and even going back to high school, Jim Walden, who I later coached for at Washington State and Iowa State. So just those two as role models. And then you go to Green Bay, and that was when Coach LeBeau was a young guy and really got the kind of coaching bug with him, and played for Marv Levy, and all of those guys played for Tom Osborne at Nebraska. So just seeing how they handled themselves and the good things they were doing, not only for me, but my teammates, just kind of got me to thinking, hey, I thought I was going to be a doctor, but figured out I wasn't smart enough to do that. So I kind of moved on, got a master's in ed administration at Washington State. Again, thinking I'd maybe coach and be an administrator in high school, but had the opportunity to go right after I retired to Washington State as a coach, and just a lot of things added to it being something that I love to do, and just retired a few years ago.
Boy, playing for Dr. Tom at Nebraska, there's nothing like football in Lincoln, Nebraska. I mean, it is just the whole town shows up on game day. I mean, everybody's at the stadium. There's no doubt about that. Were you teammates with Frank Solich at Nebraska?
No, he I'm going to tell him you asked that question. He's several years older than me, so but he'll like the fact that somebody put him in my age bracket there. But no, he was probably 10 years or so before me, and
okay.
My teammates were tough Tony Davis. That
Sure.
I saw a highlight of Tony today, and somebody posted it from a game with the Bengals, and Tom Rood, which is, I think he played for the Bengals.
Yep.
Tom and I were teammates. Rick Bonas, I think, may have played with the Bengals, and David Hum was our quarterback, and Terry Luck, who played with the Browns, and then Vince Ferragamo. So that's kind of the era that I played in.
Well, that's a very, very strong era for sure. Yeah, tough Tony Davis. He was our special teams captain. And the thing that I'll never forget about him, he literally broke his face playing a game, covering a kick. His face mask broke, and it just caved in on his, and he broke. They had to go. I don't want to get too gross here, but they had after the game, they had to perform surgery, go through the roof of his mouth, and glue everything back together under his face. Unbelievable. And
Yeah,
he wanted to go back and play with a broken face.
Yeah, his nickname was definitely deserved, Tough Tony, and he was a great player for us, a really good friend. We continue to communicate, and he played several years in the NFL, and was willing to block and catch the football. I mean, just an all-around player and a great teammate, and most of all, a great football player. And I think he started out maybe with the Bengals, and then ended up with Tampa Bay. Actually,
Right.
My first game ever was with the Packers, was against the Bengals in a preseason game, and Tony was playing, and and then later in the middle of that year, my last game, they released me in the middle of the season, and my last game was against the Bengals at Riverfront. So Tony and the Bengals came to Green Bay for our first preseason game, and then the last game I played was against the Bengals in Cincinnati.
I was playing in that game.
You are?
Yeah, I was playing at that time frame. Yeah, in the 70s. My rookie year with the Bengals was 74.
Okay, so that would have been, I think I was drafted in 76, so
right.
That would have been the season of 76.
Yeah, yeah.
Preseason game against the Bengals, and then a regular season game against the Bengals.
That's crazy, man. I tell you, football is it definitely is one big family. There's no question about that. We talk about Frank Solich. He ended up coaching at Ohio University, still there for a number of years, and you end up coaching with him as a defensive coordinator and then assistant head coach down the stretch. For 16 straight years, you're the defensive coordinator at Ohio University. That's a heck of a run, sir.
Well, when we moved here, and there's a lot of coaches that go a lot of different places, but when we got here, I was working for a great coach and a even better person in Frank Solich, and we had success. And then by the time Joe got to the ninth grade, I just wasn't interested in moving anywhere and seeking other jobs. And my wife had gone back to school and became a teacher here in town. Now she's a principal. So just a lot of things added up to us spending all those years in Athens, Ohio. I never knew anything about it until I came here, but it's a great place. We love the area, and as Joe does, and we love the Bobcats. So it was fun.
2009, you were voted Mid-American Conference Defensive Coordinator of the Year. So you had some real good success at Ohio University. What's your biggest memory of your time spent at Ohio U?
I think just the camaraderie that we had with the coaching staff. We spend 10 hours a day, pretty much year round with each other, and
Sure.
And I certainly miss that. So those are great memories, and then just the players that come through, and you have a chance to impact their lives, and you look back and players that went on to play in the NFL, and then players that just continue to reach out that thank you for the things you did for them. And so those are all great memories. We had a lot of bowl games. Our string of victories against our dreaded rivals, the Miami Redhawks.
Right.
That I have to throw that in there, and probably upset some of your listeners, but we had a lot of success against those guys, and that's a good memory too.
You definitely did. Definitely did do that. Let's talk about your sons. Obviously, tremendous gene pool with Jimmy Burrow, great athlete yourself, and your son Jamie and your son Dan. They play at Nebraska as you did, and then Joe. But talk a little bit about Jamie and Dan and their football. Which one did they both play linebacker? Was one a linebacker? Am I right in that?
Dan was a high school. He was a quarterback and a defensive back, and
Okay.
I was the head coach for him his last year. And but Jamie was a linebacker. It's kind of odd. Jamie was a 248-pound. I think that's what he weighed at the combine. A middle linebacker, started at Nebraska as a middle linebacker, and then Dan was about 175-pound safety. So he was built a little more like me. But they both were really good baseball players, basketball players, just like Joe was. And Jamie eventually signed as a free agent with the New York Jets, and played that whole preseason with the Jets, and was released, and just decided to a lot of people want to continue to try and make those teams, and Jamie had just decided he wanted to move on. So that was the extent of his career, and now Dan and Jamie are both medical equipment, medical supply salespeople. So but they still follow Nebraska football, and of course Joe.
Yeah, so let's get to Joe. When did you know that you had something special with Joe?
Well, he was always a really good athlete. So, you start out with soccer. That's the first competitive sport. And then we moved into, what's called sandlot baseball, little league baseball. And you could just see, traces of the fact that he was certainly one of the better players in almost every sport that he would play. And then just how much he competed, I guess, kind of stood out. And you said, well, if he gets some size here and there, maybe football. He was a great shooter in basketball. But then in the third and fourth grade, when he was a quarterback, when basically you guys know at that level, you put your best player at tailback and you toss him the ball like 30 times during the game. Well, Joe was a quarterback, and he had a set of twins, the Lerman twins, who are now the starting tight ends for Ohio University. And Coach Sam Smathers here in town put him in shotgun and was throwing the ball all around the field in third and fourth grade. And I'm seeing this, and I'm going, that's pretty impressive for the third and fourth grade. But then he was just such a good basketball player. We just, there was just a lot of games, a lot of moments where you say maybe he can be a basketball player at some point. Maybe he can be a football player. But his build was more for basketball as he became taller and pretty skinny. But then 10th grade, I guess when he started playing quarterback out here at Athens, that you saw what he was capable of doing again with the twins and a lot of other great receivers. And I said, he's a football player, not a basketball player. Although he probably could have played in the MAC as a basketball player.
Yeah, I mean, he was all state, right? And I remember in the BCS, I'm trying to think of which game it was. They had a 3-point shooting contest before the game, and Joe, he was the anchor shooter, and I don't think he missed. I mean, I think he hit every 3 he took. I mean, he can really still fill it up, can he? And I think I read where he said he hadn't shot a basketball in a couple of years or something.
No, he was the anchor man in that kind of a contest, and they were down, and he stepped out there. I know he hit at least 10 or 11 out of 12, or maybe he hit them all. But he can still. I would bet he could still walk out there and shoot a pretty good percentage from 3-point land.
Boy, that is crazy. So he ends up going to Ohio State, and then of course transfers, and the legendary path unfolds. But when he first went to Ohio State, were you okay with his decision? How difficult was it for you, Jimmy, when Joe was going through the recruiting process? How difficult was it for you as a parent and with all the coaching experience that you've got?
Well, I think that helped. Especially as it became more and more heavily recruited, and then there was always his love for the Bobcats in Ohio University growing up, and so there was a lot of people, even his mom and I, Robin and I, thought there was a chance he might even stay home here and play for the Bobcats, and then he started getting all these offers, and even there were a lot of Power Fives that he would have still chosen Ohio University over those Power Fives, we grew up. Me playing at Nebraska, my wife's from Nebraska. Jamie and Dan played at Nebraska, so that was the original thought: is if he doesn't play for the Bobcats, he's going to play for Nebraska. And then Coach Meyer called, and Tom Herman had been the recruiter, and we knew they were close for several weeks, several months to offer him. And then Coach Meyer called and offered Joe, and they just won the national championship. So it was kind of a no-brainer, because Joe's so competitive and wanted to have a chance to play at the highest level and win a national championship is what it boiled down to. And that's why he chose the Buckeyes.
And it didn't go according to plan. Up there at Ohio State, there was injury that he had to fight through. But the fact that he faced adversity the way he faced it and the way he handled that, what did that mean to you as a parent, as a dad?
We were really proud of the process and how he handled not only the recruiting out of high school, but then that decision. I mean, we started kind of thinking about it a few months before that, but he wanted to stay and compete for the starting job. JT Barrett had just left, and it basically was he and Dwayne Haskins. But then it took him several weeks to come to that conclusion, and he thought it out. He wrote stuff down, wrote things down about pluses and minuses, and then it was tough. It was tough on Joe, really tough on us to see him go through that process, to have to come to that decision. But once he made that decision that he was going to leave, then another process started, because we'd already had just a ton of different schools to start reaching out to us, because they knew that was a possibility. And so we had to go through that whole process again of recruiting and Joe. But it was huge to Mom and Dad to see how he went through that whole process to make that decision.
ultimately decides to go to LSU. Ed Orgeron, I know, is a heck of a recruiter. how
Yeah.
how involved was Coach O?
Well, he was involved.
Yeah,
He was the
yeah,
guy, and
yeah.
Bill Bush had was a Nebraska guy, so we had somewhat of a relationship over the years, just knowing Bill. So he got involved, but then uh, Cincinnati, uh, Joe loved, and we did as a family. Luke Fickle, got to know him at Ohio State, and not just Luke, but his family,
Right.
and they had several guys there that had been on that staff at Ohio State. So he was real close to committing to Cincinnati, and then we went to LSU for a visit, and once again the lure of playing hopefully for a national championship kind of won out, and that's why he chose LSU.
Boy, and it just, I mean, he had a real good year the first year, but then obviously the last year he was at LSU. Just the records are incredible, and the performance that Joe put on the football field week after week after week. I mean, it was like just kept raising the bar. I mean, his standard was just incredible. When did Joe start to appreciate the grind the way he does? I mean, he is one guy when he says, "I really do enjoy the grind," that I believe totally. And he is big about the process, isn't he? Was he always that way?
I think that people ask me about the dad part of being an influence, being a coach, and we didn't spend a lot of time talking about it, but I think he knew what we did to prepare for games as a coach, and I think kind of carried over to him. I mean, we would watch film of those third and fourth grade games, and I didn't really grind away with grading his film or anything like that, but
Right.
we talked about things for a long time, coverages, and it wasn't something that I said, "Hey, you have to do this." He enjoyed it, so that continued to play out. He spent a lot of time on his own watching film in high school and at Ohio State, and then LSU. Especially that last year, he only had a couple of online classes to finish up his master's, and that was huge for him to just spend so much time with the coaches and the analysts during the day before they even started their regular meetings. But he thought it was fun, and he thought preparation was always the key to success individually and as a team, and really bought into that whole process.
Yeah, you make a great point, Jimmy, about the fact that he utilized the scholar athlete part of it probably as well as anybody. I mean, to get a master's degree in that time frame, he didn't fool around. I mean, he put his nose in his books as well, and it's just a tribute to the kind of young man he is. When did you realize that his football acumen, his football IQ was pretty darn high?
Well, I think for sure. I could see it when he was throwing to different receivers in third and fourth grade, and he's maybe reading a safety or something.
Really?
Safety's there, and he's throwing there. But then 10th grade, they changed offenses out here at Athens High School, and went to no huddle, went to basically four wide receivers, and the look to the sidelines, and then give Joe the couple of plays, the couple of options. And I just saw how effortless, he was able to make those decisions and do the reads. And, he could run the football too. We had a great running back in Trey Williams. And so he was able to do the power run reads. And so that all came to fruition really as a sophomore, and you could see it all coming together.
Yeah, he just his teammates, I think, have so much confidence in him because they know he's put in the work. They know that he's dotted every I, crossed every T, and when they take the field, they don't think there are going to be any surprises to Joe. It's like they understand. Even in his very first game as a rookie, all the guys have been there around for a few years. Look to him as a guy that, wow, I mean, we got something special here in terms of understanding what he's looking at and how to attack it. and having all the answers. I mean, he really impressed his teammates from Jump Street here in Cincinnati.
Well, he spent a lot of time here when during the pandemic with Zoom meetings with the Bengal coaches and their staff, and I just saw his notes downstairs the other day that
Really?
I kind of flipped through them and saw how extensive those notes were, and really that first game, that last drive of that first game against the Chargers might have been the most impressive things for that team to really drive down, and he, I still debate that was a touchdown to AJ Green, I think, and
I agree.
that he pulled off, which I don't know that I've ever seen in the NFL in the end zone too much of a call like that. But that was a time when I think everybody realized that the Bengals could get things going at some point in the future.
How tough a decision was it for you, Jimmy, to retire for Joe's last year at LSU, and you wanted to see that last year of college football for your son? You wanted to be there firsthand, and then it ends up being a historic season, Heisman Trophy win for your son. How tough a decision was it to hang up the coaching part of things?
Well, it was hard. I mean, I hadn't been able to go, but I'd only seen 3 games of Joe's junior year. None of them were in Baton Rouge. So I was always torn between staying in coaching and being able to watch Joe. And just when you've done something for over 30 years, and then you add all the playing seasons that I had, and you're getting close to 50 years there of being involved as a coach or player.
Right.
You're getting ready to make that decision. I mean, it was hard. I sat in the parking lot for about 45 minutes in my car before I took the elevator ride up to Coach Solich's office. Just thinking things through one last time, but just being able to know that Joe was going to have a one more season left at LSU, and my wife had gone to every game the year before and told me how great Baton Rouge was on game day, and really when you kind of got down to it, I mean, it was even though it was a tough decision, it really was a no-brainer when it comes to, hey, I'm going to be able to watch Joe play 12 games, and I think it ended up being 15 games to go to Baton Rouge and experiencing tailgating at Alabama and Ole Miss and Mississippi State and watching all those great SEC games, and then the playoffs and the national championship. It was certainly worth it.
It's funny you mentioned Joe with the meticulous notes. I remember Paul Brown talking about Sam Wyche, and the reason that he thought Sam Wyche was going to be a successful NFL coach is that he said he remembered Sam Wyche's playbook when he collected the playbooks at the end of training camp, or at the end of the season, I should say, not training camp. He would look back into the playbooks and see what kind of notes players took and how diligent they were. And he said Sam Wyche's were meticulous. And he said, you know what, this guy, he could, if he gets into coaching, he could be a good one. So I think there's something to be said for that, and that entire process. And then I remember Kenny Anderson talking about, getting drafted by an NFL team. If I'd gotten drafted by the Atlanta Falcons, probably would have never heard of me, but I get drafted by the Bengals, and I have Paul Brown as my head coach and Bill Walsh as my offensive coordinator. Well,
Yeah.
Joe has Coach O, who he has a great relationship with, and a high-level offensive coordinator, and all those components are significant. I mean, Joe was on the same page with his offensive coach. It was almost like, ESP. They read each other's filled in the blanks, didn't they? I mean, that was just an unbelievable year they had.
Dave Lapham here, and every day I am grateful for my experience to have played professional football. As a player, I realize self-motivation, leadership, and appreciating your teammates are key. At First Star Logistics, you can use those same attributes to create the life you want for you and your family. Build your future by working hard like I did. You'll see results both on and off the field. Call First Star Logistics today and be part of our winning team.
Well, once again, they kind of changed. They did. They changed their offense from one year to the next, and just showed a lot of trust in Joe. But they showed a lot of trust in that whole offensive football team. They had, of course, Jamar Chase and Justin Jefferson and all those guys, Terrace Marshall, and Thaddeus Moss. I mean, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, and that's the one thing I think people don't give enough credit to those guys is how smart of football players they were. Yeah, they're totally freaks when it comes to athleticism, but they're all smart to be able to do the things that they do and have the confidence that Joe was going to make the right decisions and make the right throws and the right checks and I think as Joe is there more this year with the Bengals, you'll see even more and more of that.
There's no doubt. I'm excited to see where it goes to the next level and how it goes to the next level. And then unfortunately, Joe's having an all rookie season in my estimation. I mean, it's going really well for him. He's doing a great job with the football team, taking care of the football, making great decisions. And then in the Washington game, there's the tragic injury. And when it happened, as a former lineman, I'm looking at it, my pit of my stomach just kind of, ugh. I mean, when you see a collision like that, it's not a great outcome, and it turns out to be a tough outcome. What went through your mind when you saw that, Jimmy?
Well, I've seen him take big hits a lot because we watched a lot of football games, but he always bounced up. He always took a lot of pride in jumping right up, and then when he didn't get right up, and I saw it. I mean, we knew right away that it was a pretty significant injury, and then we got the call from the locker room from Joe and the doctors, and we kind of got an update. So we jumped in the car and went to Cincinnati to his home to be there when he rolled in there. But it was tough for us not to be there right away at the game. I mean, we would have been other than the pandemic. So
right.
But we knew that Joe would bounce back. I mean, one of the first things that he wanted to talk about is we wanted to talk about the injury and how he felt and all that. And he just wanted to talk about how well they had played in the first half against the number one pass defense in the National Football League. I think they had over 200 yards, and he wanted to talk about that, and we wanted to talk about, hey, you just suffered a pretty significant knee injury, but that's just Joe. But once he knew what was ahead of him and the process and the rehabilitation that needed to be done, I mean, he jumped in, bought into that just full speed.
Yeah, and being the kind of guy he is, I'm sure he wanted to set rehab records. I mean, he's so competitive, and it's like, boy, I got to make sure I don't do too much and have a setback here. And that balancing act, I think, gets tough, particularly with a guy that does have a competitive nature. I mean, was it? Did you find it? Did Joe find it difficult to rehab and not try to overdo things, or how did that whole process unfold, Jimmy?
Yeah, I think that's accurate. That at times I'm sure he wanted to go faster and push a little more, but he also trusts the surgeon that did the operation, and also the Bengals when he got back to Cincinnati. He trusts those guys and is willing to listen to them because he knows they know what's best for him. But I mean, even in California, a day or two after the surgery, he would kind of throw me a football across the room, just laying in the bed. So it wasn't ever too far away from his mind. But once you know what lies ahead and the plan, you trust the people that are helping you with that plan, then you just have to follow it. And I think Joe's done a good job with that.
Well, I'll tell you what, I'm impressed with what he's done in the off season. The weight training, look, he's put on some really good, it may not be a whole lot of difference in the overall body weight, but I think the composition of the weight, looks different. He looks really strong. And he was talking about how the strength in his hips and everything has increased. Yeah. And because I was watching him Tuesday this week when we were allowed to go down for organized team activities, and he had some zip on that football. Not that he didn't before, but I mean, I thought I saw some increased velocity. And I asked him about it in our Zoom press conference afterwards. The presser, I said, Joe, do you feel like you're throwing it with a little more velocity? He said, I do. And he's been working hard, and that's no surprise. He has such a tremendous work ethic.
Yeah, he had told me that he thought that he'd have a lot more velocity on the ball. You always want to make sure that he doesn't lose his accuracy, which has always been the probably his key thing in his passing. And he doesn't think that it'll be the same, and the velocity will help him. Yes, doing the core strength has helped him in his legs, and Nick Cosgrove has done a great job with him, and the strength coach and those type things. And so you got to make the best of it when something like that happens. And I think, again, that's a credit to Joe, because you say, okay, I've got 4 hours a day to get this done. I've got to improve in certain areas. And that adds up to really, I guess, what you saw the other day with a little more increased velocity. And he was so happy to be back out there. He was probably a little jacked up to crank the balls out there too.
Right. The LSU Bayou Bengals are becoming Cincinnati Bengals. I mean, you got Joe, Jamar Chase, like you talked about, took him with the 5th pick of the draft. They picked up Thaddeus Moss, the tight end that has a pretty famous dad, and Randy, obviously. And Joe put up ridiculous numbers with those guys when he won the Heisman Trophy. How excited has Joe been to talk to about reuniting with some of his former teammates?
Well, he's excited. Both Thaddeus and Jamar were two of not only his favorite receivers, but two of his better friends on the team. Quality character guys and winners, and that's why Joe likes them too. Is they're both very competitive, and will do whatever it takes to try to win games. But he's excited. But the guys coming back too. I mean, he loves Tyler Boyd and T. Higgins and those guys, and just put all that together. And that's something that he really looks forward to throwing the football to those guys.
So as a parent, what did it feel like when you were sitting there during the Heisman Trophy presentation ceremony and your son got up there and talked about people in his hometown that need help, and just, I mean, it was just an unbelievable speech that he made. And when I'm watching that, I'm thinking, man, this kid's more than a football player. I mean, this is a special human being right here. And the reaction, the outpouring that he got of support in terms of dollars raised, and the whole thing was dynamic. As parents, when you and your wife were observing that, I mean, what went through your mind and your heart?
Yeah, well, I mean, it was tough emotionally to be there and watch that, and just how proud we were. But then, when he started talking about the Southeast Ohio and Athens in general, it just makes us really even more proud to know that Joe's not just a football player, that he is a caring person about a lot of different things, and he's willing to do something about it. And you watch him go through that and do that. You look behind him and all the great football players, and yet that particular 20-something seconds, 30 seconds of the speech seemed to be what really sold everybody on, hey, like you said, Joe's is a lot more than a football player. And Joe's continued to be involved in the Appalachia Foundation and the food pantry. And I think we're close to $1 million. We're probably over $1 million right now.
Wow.
In donations, just because of that 31 seconds of Joe's Heisman speech.
Man, that's powerful. I mean, when you think about it, that's just truly incredible. And everybody that I talk to, and because of this pandemic and everything, I mean, I haven't had a chance to actually meet your son. Just it's all been Zoom or from afar, watching him, perform on a practice field or a football field, and haven't had a chance to shake his hand and look him in the eye. And I can't wait to do that, because he is such a special human being. But I mean, was he always like a natural born leader? It's not something that he has to try to put on. Okay, I'm going to put on my leader face. I mean, Joe's just Joe, but he is the epitome of a leader. Has it always been that way with him?
Yeah, I think that's something that you kind of have or you don't have. I mean, you can spend a lot of time as a coach trying to encourage leadership on a football team, but I think there's a lot to just being born naturally a leader. And I think yeah, Joe from an early age kind of exhibited that. I think it's certainly easier if you have that ability and you're a quarterback to start showing that. And he always understood. I think that he was the leader of a football team, and he respects the fact that there's a lot of pressure on a leader and the leadership, and it rubs off on people, and that's what he takes a lot of pride in.
So when Joe's not consumed with football, when he has a chance to just kind of step back a little bit and decompress, what kind of things does Joe like to do?
Well, I'd like to say he had 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5 other different things, but he really doesn't. He enjoys playing video games with his former high school friends and still some of his college friends, and that's probably what consumes most of his time, as maybe a lot of people his age, is video games, and really that's about it. I mean, he likes watching the I think it's the UFC, those type fights. He's kind of gotten into those things. So, but other than football, the things he does out on his own time is really limited. He doesn't have a lot of other activities. He started playing a little golf with me last year, and just briefly, and then of course the pandemic hit and most of the courses weren't open. So I think that's something that he'll take up and try to get really good at one of these days.
So growing up with you as the dad and your son's all interested in football, it wasn't like at the Thanksgiving dinner, salt and pepper shakers were one formation and you were using utensils for another. It wasn't that kind of thing. It wasn't just football all the time with you and your sons. I mean, it was a normal father-son relationship, correct?
Yeah, I mean, there was just always sports, though, from one to the other. And, I helped them all through a lot of, batting practice, took them to the gym a lot for shooting activities. And we watched a lot of sports. But, I didn't think it was just all consuming. We knew that they had to do other things and have other fun activities, with their friends. And I don't really think I ever just pushed it on them. It was, hey, here's let's put you on this team and see if you like it. And all 3 of them just really bought into all the sports. And none of them are probably going to be coaches. Jamie and Dan certainly aren't going to be a coach. I doubt if Joe will, but if any of the 3 would be a coach, it probably would be Joe. And but we did spend a lot of time talking sports, though. That's for sure.
What if Joe doesn't get into coaching? What did he like most in terms of academics? I mean, where was his focus in that area, and where do you think he might take himself occupation-wise if it's not coaching or related to football in some way?
That's a great question. I don't know the answer. I mean, he likes a lot of different science things. He used to watch some of those shows that told how certain things were operate and in the geology or astronomy and those type things. And but I have no answer for that right now, Dave, what he would do. So which leads me to believe maybe he wouldn't be a coach.
Yeah, I'll tell you, he's got a lot. He's a well-rounded young man. You should be proud. And I mean, it's, as a coach, you always love to see your players come back after they're done playing football. And if they did play professional football in some way, shape, or form, that's great. But if not, be a real contributor in some sort of business world, or a solid citizen, family man, good husband, good dad, that kind of thing. That's real rewarding to a coach. When your kids turn out the way your kids have, boy, hats off to you and your wife. You guys have done an unbelievable job of raising your family. It's incredible.
Well, I appreciate it. We're proud of them, certainly with Joe and all the time that his mom Robin spent taking him to all the little league games. Most of the time I was coaching. We either recruit or practice or games or whatever. So she deserves certainly most of the credit because she was the one that spent all the time in the travel basketball and the travel baseball, and sometimes I'd get to hitch a ride with them. But she was pretty amazing doing all the things she did for Joe and Jamie and Dan when we were in Ames, Iowa.
At what point, Jimmy, as a former coach, during that national championship run, Heisman Trophy winning season that your son had, at what point during that season did you say, "Wow, these guys are pretty good. This could be really special and interesting"?
Probably the Texas game. That was an unbelievable environment that day in Austin, and at the time, Coach Herman had those guys playing really good football, and it was back and forth, and just to see what we had offensively that day and the firepower that they exhibited. You said that they're going to be hard to beat. The defense didn't play particularly well that day, but we had a lot of great players. They were battling through some injuries, and but that particular day, you knew that if the defense came around, which they did, that you had something pretty special. Then, of course, the Alabama game in Tuscaloosa, the president of the United States there, and they're just going crazy, and it's going back and forth. And just to see the character on that football team that particular day, you again knew that they were going to have a chance to win the national championship.
Is Joe a goal setter? And if he is a goal setter, does he share his goals with you?
Oh, I just know that the only goal that he has is to win football games and to win the Super Bowl. And that drives him all the time. If you said, "Hey, would you rather be MVP 3 times or 8 times or win 1 Super Bowl?" I mean, that question. He'd give you the, kind of what I call you the Joe look, and wouldn't even think it deserved an answer. But he just loves winning and wants to win games and win a championship, and that's what drives him.
Well, once again, I want to congratulate you as a dad, because Joe is again. I'm looking forward to meeting him face to face, but just in the dealings with him, he always gives everybody respect. He always, in our world, in the media world, he's never disrespectful, rude. He answers everything, and the guy is a joy to be around. He's a special human being. There's no question. I think he has as good as people skills as anybody his age I've ever met in my life. It really is remarkable.
Well, I appreciate it. Again, we're proud when we do watch his interviews, and Dave, I learn a lot from those interviews too, because he doesn't talk a lot to us about the different things. So when you ask him a good question, I appreciate it. But he's just always been respectful. When he gets to the Bengals, he understands his role and what's expected of him, and part of that is handling the media the correct way and being a role model for really all the kids growing up and the fans of Joe and the Bengals. And I think in his mind, he's always going to make sure that he represents the Bengals the right way.
Or the connection that he has with Zach Taylor, Brian Callahan, Dan Pitcher. I mean, all the coaches that deal with him on a daily basis. You can tell that it's on a much higher level than just player-coach relationship. I mean, it's a very interesting dynamic to watch, and I think it can lead to some very special things for this franchise. I really do.
Well, he totally bought into those guys just when it's all started on the Zoom meetings, because I think he realized that they were very smart. They had a great connection to what Joe had done at LSU, and were willing to kind of blend some of those things in. And but yeah, he loves the direction they're going. I would ask him during the pre-draft, "Hey, what's best? Just like everybody, should you take a lineman? Should you take a receiver?" And he would just say, I trust Zach, and I trust the front office to sort it all out, and I trust that they're going to make the right decision. So he's totally in. He always has been since the day they drafted him, and that'll continue.
So, like a lot of people think that Joe Burrow drafted Jamar Chase. That wasn't necessarily the case, huh?
No, he. I'm sure that they asked questions of Joe about Jamar and his character, and it wouldn't have been anything but, great things that Joe said about Jamar. But as far as, like, I saw, where he pounded the table and was really pushing, I know for a fact that that's not the case. That's not Joe's personality. And again, he respects the organization and the coaching staff way too much to pull something like that.
And finally, Jimmy, appreciate all the time that you've carved out for us. I know everybody's going to be very interested in hearing this podcast. Joe looks like he's on schedule. I mean, what he showed, in the organized team activity, he's been throwing for a while now, but to trainers and, people like that, rehab people, but to get out there and do it with his teammates, it was impressive to watch him. I mean, he got up to pretty good form very, very quickly. So it was all very encouraging. Do you anticipate, in your conversations with him, do you anticipate that he'll be there for the first snap in the regular season opener?
Well, I definitely wouldn't bet against him. That's for sure. But yeah, I mean, he's on track. Just communication with Dr. Elatrosh and with the Bengal staff and his strength coach. I mean, there's really, as long as there's no setbacks, which we all know can possibly happen, as long as there's no setbacks, I would expect him to be out there the first series in the first regular season game, and I know that's his goal.
Well, can't wait. Honestly, I mean, I'm really looking forward to seeing what Joe Burrow does in year number 2. I remember my rookie year to the second year. It's like, ooh, all of a sudden the light goes on, the picture gets a lot brighter and wider and bigger. You see, you understand things so much more readily. And Joe had such a huge understanding as a rookie, but there's always, you can always have building blocks. And I think year 1 to year 2, I'm excited to see how that unfolds for your son.
Well, Robin, his mom and I are really excited to hopefully be able to go to all the games. I mean, we'd planned on it last year, and we're going to continue to support the Bengals. And as I said, as long as they're allowing fans in the stands at ever how many games, I guess now it's 17 games, and then we'll be there. And we're really excited to watch Joe and the Bengals and how they progress this year. And I know Joe's excited about that, about the future also.
Well, Jimmy, congratulations on a very, very successful football career yourself as a coach, and just understand a little bit the kind of guy you are and the way you influenced young men at a very influential age. You've done a lot of good for a lot of people in terms of coaching as long as you did, and to raise a family the way you have and have a son like Joe it's really special. As a dad myself, I congratulate you and thank you very much.
Thank you for the kind words, and thank you for having me on your show. And I look forward to meeting you in person at some point also.